So if you're just starting out with applique, a common problem you might have is not being able to get your curves smooth. Circles are considered more of a beginner shape, but definitely a little bit more tricky than just a straight line for squares, rectangles, stuff like that. So what I have noticed is a lot of people will start with something like this, how the edges are kind of rigid. There's like little points almost as you go around the circle, and what we want is something nice and smooth like this. So there are a few things that I feel contribute to this problem. I would say one is your stitches are just a little bit too big. If you are stitching too far apart, more than 1/4 of an inch, maybe even less depending on the curve, then you're gonna probably get those sharper points right there. You want to keep your stitches much closer together, and that'll keep that curve nice and smooth. Another problem is going to be your seam allowance. If you have a seam allowance that is more than 1/4 of an inch, you might also have that big bulky kind of like hard to fold piece, so you may need to trim your seam allowance down. Those are really the two main factors I've noticed that contribute to that problem. Really, when I go to do a curve, you just want to focus on doing that next 1/4 of an inch. So when you go to tuck this under, we don't need to worry about anything but what you're about to stitch. So you don't really tuck a whole bunch in, you do it really gradually, and then just a tiny stitch like that. I would say no more than 1/4 of an inch when you're going around a curve. And then you can kind of tuck in. If you find when you tuck the seam allowance under, if it does create a little bit of a point, I'll use my needle to work that out and kind of push that in. You can pull on the thread a little to smooth that point out, and then just keep going. Like that. I would say once you try fixing those two things, you are going to be on your way to smoother curves.